Whenever I would ask on social media which Doctor Who Big Finish story I should listen to next, one answer that came up with some alarming frequency was The Holy Terror, the 14th Doctor Who Big Finish audio release of the main range, first released in 4 parts in November of 2000 across CD, cassette and download, and written by Robert Shearman. Now, this is also the second part of the sidestep duology that started with the Shadow of the Scourge and now continues in The Holy Terror. The 6th Doctor, voiced by Colin Baker, and his companion Frobisher, a Whiffadil, or a shapeshifting creature, voiced by Robert Jesek, arrive in seemingly a time of medieval religious upheaval. The latest king of all the land, Pepin VI, has just died, and there's kind of a big argument about who is going to take his place. Now, it's supposed to be his son, Pepin VII, who takes over, that being voiced by Stephen Atkinson. However, Pepin VII doesn't actually feel like he's worthy to become king, or worthy to become the god of the people. Everyone is looking for a god, but he just doesn't feel he is one. So he tries to find some way to get out of it, but at the same time, they end up encountering a load of other characters, and things get relatively complicated. Other characters they encounter include Eugene Tacitus, a religious scribe voiced by Sam Kelly, who's mainly there to detail the chronicles of everything that happens in this great land. There's Pepin VI's widowed wife, Berengaria, voiced by Roberta Taylor, who distinctly hates her son and she believes that now that her husband has died, she should be dying as well, and she just wants to die, continue the process, continue tradition, and just get the whole thing over with. There's Pepin VII's brother Childeric, voiced by Peter Guinness, who believes that since his brother doesn't want to be God, that he should have a chance at it, even though he never really gets to. There's Sejanus, the captain of the Royal Bodyguard, voiced by Daniel Hogarth. There's Pepin VII's wife, Livilla, voiced by Helen Punt, who's rather angry at her husband that he doesn't want to be king because she ultimately wants power and to be seen as a great goddess, even though her husband really doesn't want it. There's also Clovis, the High Priest, voiced by Peter Sowerbutts, or it might be Sowerbutts, I don't know, I apologise. And Arnulf, a henchman of Childeric, voiced by Bruce Mann, who has had his tongue cut out so that he can't really argue. Now, the first thing that I really want to talk about is that this was the first Big Finish story, at least in the main range, to really feature Frobisher as a companion. Now, Frobisher is a companion who has existed in the world of Doctor Who before. He exists across multiple platforms. And while someone like Evelyn Smythe was introduced mainly with Big Finish, Frobisher actually did exist in other kind of venues within Doctor Who, but the main one that I was introduced to him with was the kind of comic book crossover event Prisoners of Time, where he mainly appears in the 6th Doctor's part of the story, and he also does prove quite important in the final battle. Now, Frobisher, as a companion, he's explained to be a Whiffadil, which is like an alien creature that can shapeshift, and he can shapeshift into practically anything he wants. However, he mainly chooses, for some reason, to assume the form of a penguin. Why he does this, I don't know. There might be some explanation for it in the wider universe, but apparently when he and the Doctor first met, someone had put a bounty on the Doctor's head, and Frobisher was essentially an undercover PI and a bounty hunter, and he disguised himself as part of the TARDIS so that he could track down the Doctor. But then, supposedly, they became friends afterwards, and the two would travel together for a while. Frobisher would occasionally go back to just his life as a PI, and he would later join the Doctor again. All of that. But at the same time, it's nice to finally put a voice to Frobisher. As I said, with the comics, with each kind of character, you can remember what their actor sounded like, but I had no frame of reference to what Frobisher sounded like as a character. And Robert Jesek, I think, really does put a good spin on it. I think he's giving it a New York accent. personally can't tell what kind of accent he is. I just know it's kind of distinctly kind of American PI soundish, but I'll say New York for now. If it's not a New York accent, then I apologise. But anyway, in coming to this great land and finding that the people are in religious upheaval, the people and Pepin eventually decide to make Frobisher their god. They believe Frobisher should suddenly become their god, and while Frobisher at first is a little taken aback by it, he eventually does He mainly does it just so he and the Doctor can reunite, but at the same time, you can see he's kind of enjoying it, but at the same time, he doesn't want people to die for him. And when they make a statue of him and they deem the statue is not quite right because they managed to get the beak right, he doesn't get angry at them. He just shapeshifts his beak so it resembles a statue more, which I think is a nice touch. But what they ultimately discover is there's also another creature there that's seemingly soaked in blood, takes on a 5-year-old child at first, and it's looking for its father and wants to destroy everything. And this is where I'm going to have to go into a little bit of spoilers here, because it's eventually revealed that everyone here is not real. There's only one person in this entire castle who is real. Now, everyone has always believed that there is nothing beyond this castle. There is nothing further beyond the castle itself. And they're right. In this dimension, this is the world to them. This is their universe. And it's eventually revealed that the only person who is actually real here, the only person who is actually amongst the living people, is Eugene Tacitus, the scribe. And to be honest, in thinking about this, it kind of reminds me of a famous bit from a Sherlock episode, the wedding episode, and the point that Sherlock makes is that who is the one person who can attend a wedding, who can mingle with the guests, who can pass through everywhere within a wedding, and yet never is technically seen. Like, you could look at records and this person would never be seen in any of the records. The answer? The photographer. Because think about it, it's the photographer or the videographer, the person filming a wedding, is the one person who can attend a wedding, and yet, if you look back through the records, they will never actually be seen. And for some, that's part of their job. That's just what they do. But at the same time, it does make sense. Eugene Tacitus has been writing down everything that's happening for religious posterity, and yet he is the one person at the end of it. It's revealed that the child, he is actually the father of the child, but it's a bit more complicated than that. He had killed the child at one point in a moment of insanity, and the castle is effectively his prison. And the thing is, every single time, he would write down everything that would happen, and while he believes he would pass it on to whoever was next in line, pass on to his son and all the rest of it, it's really, he has been living for pretty much thousands of years inside this prison, and eventually they get to a point where they realise that in order for everything to come to an end, he has to give the knife to the child. Like, every single time he killed the child and things would just go on. But now he prepares to give the knife to the child to kill him, to finally bring this all to an end and to end it once and for all. And I do see from that why people regard this story so highly. I mean, even though Frobisher at the end thinks, well, none of these people were real, it's like, no, but they thought they were real. That's the same as what you were doing on the TARDIS. You would program the TARDIS to create this kind of holographic fish for you to chase, but the fish thought it was real. And at the same time, it's rather... It's dark, this story, but at the same time, it is a lot to take in. So, there you go. What are your thoughts on the Holy Terror? After listening to it through, I do see why people like this one so much. I do think it is a really great story. And if you haven't listened to it yet, give it a shot. You won't be disappointed. So there you go. There's my quick little thoughts on the Doctor Who Big Finish story, The Holy Terror. Will be in my next one? I'll have to wait and see. Until next time, see ya.